Uganda, once called the Pearl of Africa, covers 241,000 square kilometers in eastern Africa. It has a population of some 21.5 million people and one of Africa's most progressive economies. Despite this, it remains one of the poorest countries in the world.
Poverty is when you don't have a family. When you sleep on the ground using these ragged clothing, you just put them together and then you sleep there. That's when you sleep, 3 people, 1 sheet. That's it counts that one as poverty.
Poverty is at the center of government plans. And it is for that reason that in 1996, government produced a Poverty Eradication Action Plan, PEP, whose major objective is to improve the living of the poor.
A poor man puts on torn clothes. He looks miserable. He doesn't eat well and is helpless. He uses unclean water, has no property, and is lame or sick.
Poverty educated, having no farming inputs like oxen, horse, or chemicals for spraying crops.
When we did the Poverty Action Plan, we were a bit in a hurry. Consultation was very weak. Indeed, of course, also I must admit, frankly speaking, that also at that time, the perceptions were that these people may not exactly know their priorities.
A poor man is one who has no resources. He may have children, but he isn't able to farm. He is always depending on others for food and other needs like shelter. A man may also be called poor if he cannot plan and budget wisely. Poverty is having many children lacking food. Not being able to pay school fees is a sign of poverty.
A poor woman is one who does not have any skills. She doesn't do anything for herself to better the situation or develop herself.
After we completed preparing the Poverty Eradication Action Plan, we realized that actually the voices and the perspectives of the poor were significantly missing.
Kalangala, 84 islands in Lake Victoria.
There is a transport problem because the boats have few good engines. We need more good engines and more boats.
It takes us almost 4 hours to cross from here to Lambu via the water. We get sick, the sun scorches us unnecessarily.
The biggest problem is during childbirth when we have no transport and no assistance. Because of transport difficulties during labor time, women can easily lose their lives, yet they would have got treatment in a hospital.
Ironically, financial help towards transport was a part of the Poverty Eradication Action Plan.
We assumed that poverty was a uniform phenomenon. So you said roads.
So the government provided money to be spent on roads, and roads alone.
We can't divert this money, we can't put it on water transport, which is the major sector here in the district. That means that at one time we may even have to raise money to the center because it is conditional. It is conditioned specifically for roads. So we are dissatisfied. We would like to see this money being allowed to even use it, being computed using all the means of transport that the district requires, like water transport.
The original research for poverty eradication was based on statistical surveys of households. Clearly, this did not address many of the problems faced by the poor on the ground. The Ugandan Participatory Poverty Assessment Process, or UPAP, was designed to try and redress this. In a pilot scheme set up in 9 of the 45 districts in Uganda, teams set out to discover from the poor themselves what the real issues are that cause poverty.
So now it came this need of going back to the people and getting the voice of the people so that we can be sure that what they're saying is actually what is their needs. And that's why we are here to collect your voice.
But the process was destined to provide much more than research material.
There are a number of benefits of these participatory methodologies to the communities because, first of all, they realize how much they know about their own communities and then how much they can even do something about their situation.
The researchers were trained in various techniques designed to involve the poor and bring out their knowledge and opinions.
Mapping means getting on the ground with local communities and ask them to give you the visual imagination of their community. And that way we got a lot of information in terms of where different resources are located within the communities. And sometimes from that, people then understood quite a bit about their communities, what they need to put in and what they need not to worry about.
So I don't know, that side, there is no water source. Everybody has to go down to this side where the swamp is going down. So you find that the farthest person this way may have to walk more than 3 kilometers to reach the nearest water source. Unfortunate, but one borehole is not functional.
One of the methods which is very good in understanding the different ways in which communities are structured is ranking.
Here, different objects represent different problems. The bicycle is transport.
In ranking, you can rank communities, you can rank wealth, you can rank different kinds of problems in a community.
And as the research came through, assumptions were reassessed. It was obvious the poor had their own set of priorities.
I think one thing that has come out strongly was that we've sort of had to change our definition of poverty. Because when we are using the quantitative data, looking at consumption expenditure of the households to define poverty. But then from the voices, it has come out that poverty is more than income. It is other things if you're going to talk about poverty within the household.
The communities who live on the islands of Kalangala described causes of poverty that would never have been discovered through statistical surveys.
So there's a problem of the money I have in the house. The husband wants to borrow it the moment he sets eyes on it. If you refuse to lend it, he beats you. And when he beats you, you have nowhere to go. My husband orders canoes at Kasamba or elsewhere not to take me anywhere.
We've got the situation of powerlessness in Kalangala district. A number of women that they could be beaten, abused, and harassed by men. And when they want to take the case to the police in the next island, all the men connive and do not allow them to board the canoe to go to the next island to report the case to the police. So they just remain there, fall back into it, and resign to suffer.
An employer can bring me here to work with an agreement for salary and food. After about a week, they abandon me, so I have to find food for myself. Yet, I'm quite new to the area, so I try and look around for someone who will feed me. After some time, I might get someone to look after me after the first phase. It's for this reason AIDS is spreading fast.
To measure powerlessness, clearly you'd have a very tough time using statistical measures. That's why these poverty assessments are so interesting, because you are able to complement your statistical indicators with the qualitative indicators that are more descriptive as to how people feel about poverty.
In every district, the researchers found that the National Poverty Survey had not uncovered a range of local causes of poverty.
And then the information flow.
For example, Bushemi district had a high average level of national income, but also a high level of malnutrition.
We found out that the population identified saying, the reason we have malnutrition is because we are selling everything to Kampala. Most of the land that used to be used for growing millet is now used for bananas and for zero grazing, and all the milk, all the bananas has market in Kampala. So very little of good diet is left for the children at home.
Conventional statistics had not shown how monoculture can deny housewives land to grow food for the family. In Kumi, poor fishing emerged as a cause of poverty.
We use rudimentary methods for fishing, and the catch we get is very miserable. You take all day in the lake only to come back with nothing. The catch is not enough to feed the family.
Kalangala is a nature reserve where monkeys are protected.
Another problem that eats our produce. It is a really big problem.
We grow a lot of food, but most of that is eaten by the monkeys.
Poverty in Uganda cannot be taken to be a uniform kind of phenomenon. What one sees from the work we did in different places, poverty is different. In some communities, for example, in Kampala, which is an urban community, and people would think, well, Kampala is, there are no poor people. The biggest problem people kept coming up with is that you have to have money, and money not only to buy the big things, but also to pay for your toilet. If you had a family of 8, that would mean you have to have money for these 8 people to use a toilet. If they use it 3 times, so that was a very specific thing for Kampala.
Other specific problems were cost and congestion of housing and flooding in the rainy season. But unique causes of poverty were found in almost every district.
Health is a first priority because many people die on the way to the health center, which is a long distance from the village.
These people living in Kasoro district have to carry their sick and dying in a stretcher for a full day to reach the nearest health clinic. The researchers found other problems that were not specific to an area like Kasoro, but actually came up again and again as they traveled through the country.
The mere fact that people were frightened to go to any health center because of what it would cost them to get any drugs or to get any treatment was a very common thing all across the board.
Treatment is difficult and expensive. In the government health center, you do not get proper treatment without money.
Lack of money may prevent a patient from being treated. In a private hospital without money, one cannot get treatment. A sick person can even die unattended too.
They ask for a lot of money at the hospital.
My wife and I have to decide on what item to sell. Treatment.
Poverty is being unable to meet basic needs. Simply that. Whatever the basic needs are, housing, food, a bit of health, education, and maybe a bit of human rights. To me, poverty is not being able to have the basic needs.
One of the most interesting things for me from the voices of the poor was the lack of information that the poor had, and this was a major factor that they identified that was keeping them poor. And they lacked information on government policies, on the Land Act, on services, how they were supposed to benefit from services. They lacked information on market prices, what sort of price they should be expecting to get for the produce they were growing.
For the rural districts, marketing had the problem of exploitation coming with it. That there were these middlemen who were always exploiting the different markets, coming and giving very, very low prices for, say, potatoes or maize in Kapchorwa or whatever it was.
Middlemen come and tell us the roads are bad and the prices out there are low. We want to eliminate them. Working in groups, we can bargain for a better price. A farmer is often cheated while selling alone.
Middlemen buy a whole sack of potatoes for only 1,700 shillings. We should insist on meeting the real buyer and negotiate for the price in a group. The middleman, because he buys cheaply and he makes a big profit on the difference.
Participatory research demonstrated that the problems of poverty are often interlinked.
Hand hoeing is a slow and difficult process of land opening. People fear to clear bush, and so small an area cleared can only produce little food.
How does food shortage affect the family? Without food, there is no peace at home. The man may not cooperate. He goes to drink, leaving the woman struggling alone. She has to look for food for the family. Food shortage in homes may cause differences between the wife. These can result in separation or divorce after frequent quarrels and fights.
Ill treatment of women emerged as one constant theme related to many other problems. Another was corruption.
Let me give you what the poor say about some of us. An old woman in Kotodo, one location in Kotodo, asked about governance and us who work in government. And she turned and said, look, in that office, it's full of maggots, and they're all pregnant. And I guess she was talking about a number of us who are corrupt, and therefore not getting the services that she should be getting.
Our leadership keep or hide assistance sent to us by government or donors. We never receive anything.
The higher leadership are corrupt and do not deliver things and services to the people who are supposed to receive them.
For example, the 600 iron sheets given to Kokong Primary School were never received. This information is from Mr. Malinga, the chairman of the school committee.
It is true I am chairman of the school committee. SK Okorut sent us 600 iron sheets. I went to the district education officer twice to claim the sheets in vain. We sent to our sub-county councillor, LC5, to talk to the DEO. He eventually discovered that the iron sheets had been used by leaders during the campaign. That is why we say we have poor leadership.
To me, I believe that one of the key options should be providing information. Let everybody know, whether you are a leader or not, what your rights are, what your entitlements are, and then demand for it. I think it will be a step forward in fighting corruption.
In addition, under road construction, some people were made to work on the roads without payment. The question is, where did the money for the road construction go? The money disappeared, and our bridge was not even repaired.
The poor can help themselves by using this improved knowledge. But under the UPAP process, it doesn't stop there.
We want the communities of the poor people to be part and parcel of our team in this process. They have their own functions and roles, both in eradicating poverty in the long term and taking action within their own communities.
When the process is completed, the villagers are invited to create their own community action plan, looking at their most pressing problems. A good example of how this can work was at Sismark, where they had no local school.
They didn't have school in the area. The children were losing children who would cross the river to go to a faraway school.
It was a priority for the village to stop losing children from drowning. They decided in their action plan to build their own school on their side of the river.
They kind of formed a committee and they started collecting the money. And good enough, there was church members who attended that meeting. And he said, no, we don't have to wait until we build the school. I can give my church premise. So that you can begin their enrollment right away.
The research was found particularly useful for district planning.
Participatory poverty assessment helps us in quite a number of ways. I think the very first one, we get to know, what the people want, and therefore we can orientate our planning according to what they want.
It enables the communities to identify their own problems within them. It now gives us a background to plan for what they really need, what help they need. We use that data for planning in order to help them.
So when they came here, they were able to request for water. They needed water, so as a result, we got 2 boreholes. They drilled 2 boreholes for them, but we realized that this water underground there is a water potential in this area. So what we have decided to do is to motorize those boreholes so that we can serve the whole town area. That's why you can see now people are able to get water from this. But before that, the community was buying water at about 200 shillings, Uganda shillings. But now they're just buying it at 25 shillings.
And it would seem that by helping plan for their own needs, the poor develop an ongoing commitment.
If people have participated in the program and they think they own it, and actually they own it and there's more ownership and participation, rather than when a plan comes from Ministry of Planning and it says you need water or you need schools or you need roads, then they think it is being imposed. They don't think they actually own the road, it's a central government road. Participation of the poor is very, very important.
UPAP is uniquely effective at a national level. Participatory poverty assessment has been tried in several other countries. For the first time, it has originated in the heart of government, with research institutions, donors, NGOs, and the Ministry of Finance cooperating to create a unique partnership.
In our case, research was done within the framework of government. The staff were recruited by Oxfam, an NGO, and managed by Oxfam, but under our government machinery. Donors sponsored and worked together with donors.
We come in all with different ideas, but at the end of it all, we have agreed to the way forward. And with the various expertise that is coming in, each one has a different angle, different views on how things should go on. And this is very interesting. But most important, when you look at the views of the communities that are being affected by whatever program, and then we all have to look at that and tune our thinking towards that and put ourselves in their shoes according to what they've told us.
And this partnership means the findings are more likely to create a quick response in practical government action. So quick, in fact, that whilst the findings were still in draft form, the government included some of them in the forthcoming budget.
Although at this stage we are still having a draft report, it's all the recommendations, you can say government has already studied the recommendations, are already being used for budget framework and medium-term expenditure. So before the report is finalized, most of the recommendations are already taken into government programs.
The voices of the people, the poor people, have actually been very loud in the budget. And the Cavalry lady or gentleman is saying, where there is no road, there is virtually no development, there is no immunization, outreach, and pregnant mothers are dying. The situation is worse during the rainy season. Okay, 2 key messages. We need more resources to improve the roads so that we can move for development in terms of moving our produce to the market. We also need good roads for the immunization service to reach us, and for us to take our sick, particularly the pregnant mothers, to hospitals. So the health sector is currently preparing their plan. All these issues in mind.
I think now government has agreed that when they are giving money to Kalangala, it won't really be conditioned on feeder roads. It will just be money for transport, improving the transportation system. So that one is already being thought about.
The poverty assessment process works for us because communities or people's needs are paramount. This process brings forward the views of the poor on their own situation, identifying priorities, their own priorities in their community, and formulating strategy to overcome those problems.
The poor knows what is best for them, and it is of government to try and do things for the poor without their consultation, because they know what their problems are, they are aware of their problems, and they can articulate them at best.
When we designed the Poverty Action Fund, we thought everything was uniform. Poverty, the causes of poverty were uniform, the problems were uniform. Initially, in the case of Karangara, we had said construct classrooms, like anywhere in the rest of the country. These people lack classrooms, construct them, conditioning, all of your districts.
But the island community had other priorities.
We have more than one class, but there is only one teacher sent over to Kalangala on the government payroll.
There is also a housing problem for teachers. Over here wouldn't have any houses to sleep in.
I think there was the RC5 who said, our priority here is not construction of classrooms, as you tell us. Our priority is to attract teachers from the mainland. Students can be under the trees in the meantime.
The islanders wanted to be able to spend the money earmarked for classrooms to build houses for teachers.
Absolutely, I couldn't have been humbled anymore that we had got, even within primary education, whereas we had got captured the priority, that we had captured our priorities upside down.
The consultations with the poor have shown vividly that they celebrate government's efforts to listen to their voices, their perspectives, and their priorities. The poor will certainly hold us in government to account for delivering policies which are poverty-focused. The communities have demonstrated that they are ready to play their part, so let's listen.
By listening to the poor, governments can avoid jumping to false conclusions. This lake would appear to provide clean drinking water.
Near the shore, the lake is very dirty. If he wants to drink clean water, a man must marry a tall wife.
Thank you.